Hi everyone, hope this video finds you well. I'm taking the opportunity today to make probably 2 or 3 videos because it's the first time I've had in quite a while to sit down in front of the camera and just get through some of the things that I want to talk about. So I have a few more videos to make in my magic series that I started a couple of weeks ago, or more than a couple of weeks ago. A few more things I want to say on that. And I also have a deck that I'd like to do a walkthrough of that I was sent by Erica from Raw Spirit in order to do a walkthrough and review, and I'm looking forward to that because I haven't really had a chance to look at it myself yet, so other than a very quick flip through. So that's on the agenda for today. I also have another couple of decks that I would like to talk to you about, and what I'm thinking I'll be doing is actually a side-by-side comparison between 2 similar but different decks. So if I get time to do that today, then I'll get onto that also. But what I want to talk about in this video in a bit more detail is a topic that I introduced in an earlier video, and that is the concept of the depth year. And this idea came from, well, it was specifically named the depth year when I saw an article that had been shared by Jessica Starr, the Story Witch, and Jessica has done a video on the depth year as well. I'll link hers below. And she was sharing an article that had been written by Leo Babuta of Zen Habits, the Zen Habits blog, and he was responding to or reflecting on an article by someone else from the Raptitude blog. And the idea is very simple. The idea is simply that you take a year, or it doesn't have to be a year, of course, it could be any length of time that you determine, and you use that year or that period of time to go in depth into the things that you're interested in or want to know more about, rather than going wide. And the reason it resonated so much for me is that I had actually been thinking about doing something very similar, and I shared in my previous video about my experience of discovering tarot decks, unopened tarot decks that I'd kind of forgotten that I'd bought, and also the experience of sitting looking through a box of unread books that I was moving from one place to the other, and then as I was sitting looking at these books lamenting that I hadn't read them, the doorbell rang and I opened the door and there was the postman with another pile of books. And it was really getting to the point where I just thought, I've got to do something about this. Not least because, you know, as many of you know, because I've mentioned it on the channel before, we're doing quite a lot of work on our house at the moment. In fact, this morning we had somebody around quoting us for installing double glazing. Which was kind of interesting because he was, as you would expect, of course, this is what they have to do, telling me all the benefits of double glazing, you know, and I was remaining very poker faced, so he was saying, you know, our windows are all A-rated, so you'll really notice a difference in warmth. And I was remaining poker faced and saying, that's very interesting, we'll look forward to your quote. And then he was saying, we'll be able to maintain the original stained glass features in some of the windows, because a couple of our windows have got stained glass bits in them, and I was saying that's very interesting. We will look forward to your quote, remaining completely nonchalant. And he was saying we'll be able to replicate the look of the original Edwardian wood, but you'll never have to paint it again. And remaining calm, cool, collected and centered, I was saying that's very interesting. We will look forward to your quote. And then he went downstairs and he noticed, he was looking at the back door in the kitchen and he said, I noticed you've got a cat flap. Probably what we would do is we would do this door first in order to ensure that there's minimum disruption for your cat. And I was like, take all my money now! Not quite, I wasn't. I was a bit more restrained than that, but he definitely got brownie points there. Definitely got brownie points there. Anyway, where was I? Yes, the work we're doing on the house. So, in all honesty, the next year is going to be busy for us. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to be difficult, I think, to do anything other than, you know, be moving things from room to room as bits of work gets done. So, so the idea of a depth year and a year in which I'm not cluttering myself up with lots of new things was already very appealing for that reason, and also for the reason of realising that there was lots of material, lots of tarot decks and books and various other things that I have in my possession already that I'm not really giving enough time to. I'm not going into deeply enough, and the concept of the depth here is exactly that. Now, in Jessica's video, she explains that the depth here, of course, can be what it, you can make it mean what it needs to mean for you. So for some people, it would mean not buying anything new, no new books, no new tarot decks, no new DVDs, all that kind of stuff. The things that maybe no new clothes or new holidays, but all the stuff we spend money on, which is about newness and new experiences and loading up with more information. We stop doing that, and instead we go deeply into what we already have. So we explore the books and the tarot decks and the DVDs and the places and the clothes and all that kind of stuff that we already have. But it depends what it means to different people. It doesn't have to mean that. I know that a lot of people at the moment, for example in the tarot community, are doing No Deck November. And others are saying, no way would I do no Deck November. There's no way I could just go that long without buying a deck. So the idea of the depth here is it's got to be made into what it needs to be for you, and Jessica gives a very good summary of what her depth here is going to be in her video. So I thought I would share in this video a bit about what my depth here is going to look like, because I have decided I am going to join in with the depth here concept, and Jessica has set up a Facebook group. And I'll put the link to that below as well. So if you're interested in joining this and becoming part of this community and exploring in depth and going deep rather than wide in the next year, then the group could well be for you. Who is calling me? Hello, it's Brian. Oh, lovely. Shall I pop round and get it? Alright, I'll see you at the door. Bye. Okay, so that was my next door neighbour, my lovely next door neighbour, who often takes in post for us, because we have got the world's smallest letterbox. So anything smaller than a leaflet just won't fit through. So guess what she had? Yes, indeed, more books. 1, 2, 3, 4 more books so far today from me. Boy, do I need a depth here. So here is what my depth here is going to look like. No new books and no new tarot decks. Now, there is a slight proviso to this. So at the moment, I tend to buy books and tarot decks, sometimes because I really want them and I know I will use them, but quite often because I think it would be nice to add that to my collection, and particularly in the case, that's more in the case of tarot decks, particularly in the case of books, it's a case of, oh, that would be interesting. I'll probably read that one day, therefore I'll buy it now because it's only like a penny on Amazon's second-hand seller section. And I do that with lots and lots and lots of books, and of course it all adds up. So what I'm going to commit myself to is none of that next year. The only thing I will do is if there is a fantastic new book by one of my favourite authors, like you know, Stephen King or Margaret Atwood or somebody that everyone is raving about, and I know that I'll want to read as soon as it comes out, then I will allow myself that. But I'm not going to do any of the buying books on the sort of, in the kind of speculative sense, in the sense of that would be useful to have on hand to refer to, or I'll get round to reading that one day. No, none of that. It's going to be only if I see a specific book by a specific author that I know I'd want to read immediately, and that will be few and far between, to be honest, because that's just not usually how I buy books. Usually how I buy books is the kind of, oh, that would be useful to have. So that's going to stop. And with tarot decks, similarly, you know, quite often I'll buy a tarot deck because I'll think, well, that would be useful, that would be good to add to the collection, or that would be interesting. So I'm going to limit myself to, if a deck comes out that I have been waiting for and waiting for and waiting for, and there is a deck that I can't remember the name of it now, but it's been shared by an artist on Facebook. If I can remember, I'll put the link below. But he's putting together just the most stunning images using, I think, kind of vector graphics, and they're just incredible. So I know that as soon as that deck comes out, I will want to snap it up, and I won't stop myself doing that in my depth here. But just general decks that I kind of think, well, that would be useful to have, or I could add that to the collection, or that would be fascinating, I will refrain from buying. If I am sent a deck for review, as I have been done a couple of times, and as Erica has done recently, then I'll obviously that's fine, but I'm not going to go out seeking new decks. So that's first of all. Now that will actually save me a lot of clutter and probably quite a lot of money, which will be useful then for, you know, due to the fact that we're having so much done to the house, which is not inexpensive. In that depth year, because I hope to have less clutter and my mind less cluttered with things that I'm half reading and half not reading, I'm going to focus on something very mundane and basic, and that is just focusing on fitness, because I've mentioned to you recently that I got back into my fitness routine. If you see my video on the power of 3, you'll see how I did that, and I want to focus more on that, to have a year that I'm focused on fitness and health and well-being. And really the main focus for this coming year in the depth year will be, as well as going in deep to the materials I have already, it will actually be to spend less time reading and more time writing. So I'm working on a novel at the moment. My plan had been to do NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. That hasn't quite worked out, partly because of pressures at work and also pressures with the house. So although I am working on the novel and I'm constructing the story and the characters and adding to it all the time, I haven't actually sat down and started writing it yet. And I'm not going to beat myself up about that, because there's so much else going on at the moment for me. So what I definitely want to do though is focus on the novel next year, and I'm going to use some of the time that is freed up for me in my depth year to do that. And I also have an idea for a couple of other books. One, possibly 2 tarot related books, and one that is a slightly more I guess you could say spiritually oriented, all-encompassing kind of book, which you know, I'm very excited about getting started on those. So I'm going to use the time and the space that I hopefully gain in my depth year to do that. And all of that will be reflected in what I do with this channel, because it's almost a year since I set this channel up, and I've got a few things I want to tie up before this year ends, and then next year I want to focus more on sharing a bit more in depth with you about the things that I'm learning. And again, that will be another great, I hope a great kind of spin-off of the depth year, is that I'll be in a position to share more with you about what I'm learning as I learn it. So that's rather exciting. And one of the things that I wanted to mention that I'm going to be doing in the year ahead is, in the depth year, the main focus of my study in the depth year is to sink into non-duality studies. Now, those of you who've been following my videos, certainly the tarot related videos, and probably in particular my Tarot to the Nines series, where I looked at tarot through the lens of number and symbol and sacred geometry and all of that, you will know that I have an interest in a kind of philosophical stream of thought called non-duality. The idea that all is one, although everything appears not to be one, of course. You know, we believe we're living in a world of separate things, you know, where there's, you know, things are solid, and you know, there's a difference between outer and inner, and between thoughts and reality, and blah 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 blah. And non-duality is the school of thought that says actually that is all a kind of an illusion, a Maya, if you will. My cat is named after the concept of this illusion. Well, actually, she's named after Maya Angelou, the poet, but you get the gist. But non-duality works on the basis that everything is in fact one, and there are connections between things that we are not generally aware of, but they are there. And I want to focus more on that, and that is going to mean studying more of the Tao Te Ching and the I Ching and the Bhagavad Gita, and also which are the kind of Eastern streams of thought around non-duality. Advaita Vedanta is another, and also some of the Western counterparts to that, or Western approaches which have similarities to that. So that will include looking at the Headless Way of Douglas Harding, and also Eckhart Tolle's New Earth approach, and the Power of Now approach, and also Byron Katie, the work of Byron Katie, who's been a great influence on me in my thinking. And also I am going to do a more serious study of a book that I have kind of hovered around on and off over the years, and have dipped into and dipped back out of, and started studying and stopped studying, but I find it absolutely fascinating, and that is A Course in Miracles. And really, in order to do this justice, I would need to do a whole other video. In fact, I will do a whole other video on it at some point, possibly next year. But A Course in Miracles is effectively a document, a book, 3 volumes actually, which were, the story is that they were channeled through an American psychologist in the 60s, Helen Schucman, who heard a voice. She actually describes it not so much as hearing a voice, but being aware that there was a voice in her head that said to her one day, "This is A Course in Miracles, please take notes." And she spoke to a colleague of hers. They worked at Columbia University in New York. She spoke to a colleague of hers and said, "This is a bit scary, what do I do?" And he suggested that she just start taking notes. And she said, "Well, what happens if it's all nonsense?" And he said, "Well, you know, take the notes, bring them into work next week. I'll sit down with you, we'll go through them, I'll type them up, and if they're nonsense, we'll get rid of them, but if they've got something to say, then we'll keep going." Well, they did have something to say, and they did keep going over the course of 7 years, and it resulted in this 3-volume work, which includes a text, a workbook for students, and a manual for teachers. And the thing that's interesting about A Course in Miracles is that it is written from, or written in, the voice of Jesus. So the narrator of the course identifies himself as Jesus. But, so it's very Christian in its language, and it talks about God, and it talks about the Holy Spirit, and heaven, and salvation, and Jesus, and many other things besides. But what it says, in terms of its theology, if you like, is almost, not exactly the opposite of, but it's very different to what we have been, if you like, brought up to believe is said in Christianity. So there are some people who are of a Christian upbringing who find A Course in Miracles very nurturing, because it kind of presents to them a much, in their words, a much kinder view of Christianity, and something that many will say is more akin to what Jesus actually taught when he was here, rather than what documents and institutions have said he taught in the years since then. Others, of course, say it's not that, it's the voice of the devil, because it's channeled and it's some kind of disembodied spirit and therefore it's evil. And it's been embraced by some people in the New Age and more kind of, if you like, ecumenical kind of persuasions. So I find it fascinating because it actually offered, it's got more in common with things like Advaita Vedanta and the Tao Te Ching and the Bhagavad Gita than it does with standard Western Christianity, because what it offers actually is a virtually uncompromising, non-dualistic school of thought in relation to what we are and what ultimate reality is. And really, to say any more than that I wouldn't be able to do it justice in this video, so I'm not going to say any more. Just to say that I find it fascinating, and the reason it's a good thing to do in my depth year is that the workbook for students actually consists of 365 lessons, which you do 1 a day for a year. And the idea behind these lessons is that they help you to get more in touch with what ultimate reality is, and what we really are, and the non-dual nature of existence. So my thinking is I'll work through the workbook, I'll read the text and the manual and the associated documents of Course in Miracles, and I'll talk a bit about it as I do, and I'll also pull in to that course of study some of the other non-dual teachings that I'm already interested in, like the work of Byron Katie and the Headless Way of Douglas Harding, and studying the Tao Te Ching and the Bhagavad Gita, and other sources of kind of non-dual inquiry and thought, Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta, and there are various. There are lots and lots of different iterations of this kind of non-dualistic thinking, and I think this will work as a great underpinning and will be interesting to explore. So that will be the main course of study for my depth year, and in addition to that, of course, going into the materials I already have and sharing all of that with you and doing my writing and fixing up the house and hopefully having an interesting and new experience in the process. So that's that from me. I just wanted to say those few things about the depth year. As I say, I've linked Jessica's video below. She's doing a giveaway on her channel, so it's well worth checking that out. And congratulations, Jessica, to a year of video making on YouTube. And I think I'm about a month away from the same, so it's great to be still here after that time and to still have all of you watching after all of this time. So thank you all for being here, and if you want to join the depth year, please do get involved in the Facebook group and maybe make a video response or comment below and say what your depth year would be. And of course, as Jessica reminds us, for some people the depth year is not what you'd want to do. It might be that you want to have a width year. So if you're somebody who usually spends your time focused in very narrowly on something and really gets into the depths of something, in order to kick things up a bit and refresh your thinking, you might want to go wide for a year. So depth year, width year, something in between year, whatever it is, I'm sure we can all join together and learn from each other. So until next time, until my next video, which I'm probably going to film in about 2 minutes from now, take care of yourselves. I'll see you all again very soon.